Sounds pretty epic.
Hello, and welcome to the Warrior Arts Renaissance Show, where you give us hard questions and we give you solid answers. I'm your host, Dr. Philip Payne. My co-hosts at large are Shaoshi Raymond Pridgeon, Master Josh Slater, Master Don Holmes, Master Eric Allfield, and Master Tom Meredith. The Warrior Arts Renaissance Show is a production of Payne Unlimited LLC, and any proceeds will go to support the Ezra Foundation in its ongoing effort to end human trafficking worldwide. With that said, grab you a drink and pull up a chair to the table of the masters. Lend us your ear. All right, and welcome to a very special, I guess it'll be actually a sub-series, not just one episode, but a series of short episodes of the Warrior Arts Renaissance Show. This time around recording, none of my regular co-hosts were available, and I've had this kind of a topic on my heart that I wanted to work on, maybe do an episode or two on that I actually needed somebody besides one of my regular co-hosts, because the thing about meeting as a table full of masters and talking about topics is that we come with the mindset of a table full of masters. And sometimes it's important to go back and look at how we would look at things, or how people at an earlier stage in their training look at things, and go back to that shoden, as they say in Japanese, that beginner mind. When I was a very young man, a very old man, Sensei by the name of Pasao challenged me, saying that every generation of martial artists, every generation that studies art in a system is like a link in the chain, and the whole chain is only as strong as the next link that we make. And I've been wanting to free up a spot at the table, at least for a short time, for someone of that next generation to come on and pose questions and give thoughts. And so joining us today from 29 Palms, California, where he is stationed in the Marine Corps, is my son, Private First Class, United States Marine, Jacob Payne. Also he's 19 years old. He's been training in the martial arts consistently since he was 6 years old. He's trained with myself, and he's trained with Shaoshi Raymond Pridgeon, and some of the other cross-trained with some of the other instructors that you hear on this show on a regular basis, as well as others. So, Jacob, why don't you introduce yourself?
So through the years, training, I've been Shokan Karate Do, which is a Japanese karate system, which is Okinawan style, or family Kali, which comes from the Philippines, which is the Kung Fu grappling style, and then Doshi Jiu-Jitsu, which is Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. And all of those, I have a black belt rank in, or equivalent of, except the Bushido. So, not only do I study those, but I teach some of them. Teaching one of my unit here, Kali, at the moment, because he's actually a Filipino American, first generation, and he wanted to learn more from his culture, and I like to learn about his culture too, because I actually have relatives that are Filipino, and I'm always amazed by that culture. So it was a great opportunity that we took. So I have a few questions. As a young instructor myself, I just title of Sensei before I left boot camp. About 6 months ago, I want to say 6, 7 months ago, and I was hoping that not only you, but for in future episodes, either instructors and masters on the show would give insight on their opinions on these questions, these things I'm running across my young career as full martial arts instructor. If that's all right with you.
Okay, well, that is what the show is for. As we say in the opening credits, you give us hard questions, we'll give you solid answers. So fire away. Hopefully, I can give you some insight.
All right. So the first one, I've come across it as a situation as an assistant and an apprentice instructor back in the day. And basically, to sum it all up, is do you believe you as an instructor rely on your own personal experience when it comes to teaching and a topic to your rely on that? Do you rely on learning more about your student as an individual and figuring out where they're coming from so that you can tie it in to what they're dealing with more?
Well, I think there's a time and a place for both.
Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Since most of my time as a full instructor has been spent in the Marine Corps, my adult life experience has been limited to such. And so that has so far has groomed me to teach other fellow junior Marines, but I want to be working better ways to do somehow as well, because martial arts is not something that's going to go away in my life.
Right. So to go a little more in depth into that question, I said there's a time and a place for both, and I firmly believe that. I would love to say that I never teach anything that I haven't field tested myself, but that would be a lie. I try really, really hard to stick to that, but there comes a time and a place where there's going to be a situational what if, a contingency situation that you're training for that you haven't been in. Okay, there are situations that I'm thankful I've never been in. Okay, now because of some of the work I've done as you were growing up, there are situations I've been in that I hope nobody ever has to be in. Um, but that doesn't mean I've been in every bad situation. And so I can't strictly teach off of, and you can't either strictly teach off of your experience. You have to be humble enough, I guess is probably the word. Um, I know it sounds really cool on the surface to say, well, I only teach things that I've field tested because it makes you sound like a real tough guy. But in reality, I think that's kind of arrogant. In that that's assuming that I've been in every possible situation, and I haven't. So I'd better be willing to take the expertise and the hands-on first-person knowledge of the next guy. And as a Marine, that holds true for you, not just in combat training, but in all of your training. As you move up in the ranks and you're teaching people, you haven't been in every possible situation. You've never deployed overseas yet. So if somebody under you asks a question that's specific to a certain environment, a certain military base, fighting a certain kind of enemy, if you haven't been in that situation, you have to turn to those who have. Teaching the martial arts is the same way. You ask me questions sometimes about Kali. To be honest with you, my experience fighting somebody with a knife or any other blade is relatively small. I use the Kali techniques all the time for redirection, entering and passing, limb destruction. But thankfully, the number of guys who have pulled a knife on me or a shank have been pretty small. And as a result of that, if you ask me, well, what if this, and it has to do with blade work, there are a lot of times I have to give you answers that someone else gave me that I trust because they've been there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. That kind of like how you basically how I understood what you just said was an individual should remain teachable and humble enough to admit and know everything. Is that what you're trying to get at?
Well, I think that's a big part of it. I mean, you want to be as knowledgeable, hands-on, firsthand as you can. I mean, you don't want to teach techniques. You don't want to teach a whole bunch of techniques that you've never used, but you also have to be honest with the situation or look at the situation honestly and say, you know what, if you've never had a pistol pulled on you, and you're teaching pistol disarms, you need to be honest with your students and say, so and so, who actually has been in this situation, taught me this technique because it saved his life. Okay?
Yeah.
And you need to be willing to admit when you don't have the answer and go back to so and so, whoever it is, and say, okay, tell me more about this. Or tell my student, because my student's asking me questions that I don't know the answer to. And I've run into a lot of times over the years, I've run into especially young instructors who think they have something to improve, who are afraid that if they do that, then their student will run off and train with somebody else. That unfortunately, I've seen a lot of instructors fail to grow as instructors, and it was detrimental not only to their students but to their own skill sets because they were afraid to admit what they didn't know.
Okay. Yeah. I understand that. So be humble, and it's okay to rely on some of the teaching that your own teacher sometimes do if you don't have a life experience or an example of your own, because not everyone's going to have the same experience.
Absolutely.
And on that,
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for this podcast, folks. Be sure to tune in next time where we will resume this conversation right where we left off. Until then, keep kicking. And remember to support our sponsor, the Ezra Foundation, in its ongoing effort to end human trafficking worldwide.
Sounds pretty epic.